So I mentioned yesterday in my video that it's almost to the day, the anniversary of the horrific ice storm that we had just before Halloween last year. And Stuart and I were looking back over some of the footage that we shot and the devastation, and it was even worse than I remembered. So we've put together kind of a montage, a video montage of some of the images and some of the video footage from last year, so you can kind of get a feel for what it was like then, but more importantly, as kind of a point of redemption, what it looks like now and how there has been progress in the garden's recovery as we try to reclaim its former beauty. So I want to start off on a very positive note. We have a little bit of footage of a gentleman coming to visit over in this area. You can see where I've got a really large trunk that I decided to leave in place. This was just one of the massive limbs that came down off of my 100-year-old Shumard oak tree. You can see that it still has a lot of blemishes and abrasions from the ice storm. You can see that up very, very high, there is still some dead wood that was too difficult to reach. And it comes down on very windy days like this past week. And we have to really be very careful when we work underneath our trees on those windy days. Now there's an example across the street, for whatever reason, that they have not been able to prune this tree. They pruned the one on the right, but they've not yet pruned the one on the left. And you can see all of the damaged wood that is in that tree, both from the ice storm, but also from the secondary Arctic blast that we had in February. So that added insult to lots of ice injury we already had. Now back to my starting out on a positive note. When a large trunk came down, I have footage of a gentleman. His name is, he is a wood turner, Jim Simmons, who came out and at my friend Roger's suggestion, came out and took a large chunk of one of the trunks. Actually, he took almost the entirety of one of the massive trunks to do lots of wood turning and make beautiful pieces out of that gorgeous oak wood. And this is one of those pieces that he did for me. So there are a few inlays that are not oak, that are not from the tree itself, but 99% of this beautiful bowl all comes from my oak tree. So if I move in the future, I will always have a little bit of this tree that has served as guardian for our home, for my home, for so many years, and was one of the main reasons that we bought this house many, many years ago. So now let's give you a little bit of an update on what the front yard looks like. We'll show you some of the video from last year, and then I'll give you a little kind of a finale of what some of the backyard looks like. So over here, as a reminder, this entire area was pretty much completely filled in with a couple of different plants. First of all, these Foster hollies were completely filled out, and they took up the majority of this area right in here, because they were not only full at the top, but they were full at the bottom, and they had a typical conical shape, very tall, slender conical shape. And the bottom of them consumed lots of real estate. So a good bit of this section here was consumed by the hollies, and then in the foreground here, all over in here, I had a massive hedge of traditional azaleas that had been here for many, many years. But when those massive limbs came down, it literally just crushed everything that was growing underneath it, and it then also stripped the horizontal branching from these beautiful Foster hollies. Now, after After the ice storm, when we came in and were doing some restorative work, I pruned up these hollies, I would say about 8 feet from the bottom to the top, and we left just the top to fill out. But slowly over time, I realized that they were going to fill out pretty aggressively at the bottom with new suckers and also branching coming off of the main trunk. So you can see the trunk that about 8 feet up from the ground was completely barren has now already filled out pretty substantially. I was pretty aggressive in feeding it, and I will be aggressive in feeding it again, but you can see how the bottom has already really flushed out and fleshed out with new foliage and new branches. So I think by the end of next year, these will be in very beautiful, tight form. Now, on the other side, west of these hollies, Stuart, if you wouldn't mind kind of showing actually the neighbor's yard, there used to be a massive magnolia that was on that side, and that provided a lot of shade and kind of obstruction from sunlight on that side. But when we lost that magnolia, I got a lot more sun on that west side. So now there'll be a lot more sunlight. Forgive me for talking over the blower, but there'll be a lot more sunlight for these to fill out even more. And then Stuart, if you don't mind coming this way and a little bit further away from the noise, you can see that I then filled in, thanks to my friends at the Southern Living Plant Collection, I filled in this whole area with azaleas that will rebloom. And this is just their first year. And they will have more of a Japanese quality, kind of a cloud-like quality. Some of them will be taller, some of them will be lower, and they will all bloom in pink and white. And then over in here, I planted some more hellebores, and I seeded lots of foxglove, which I will move around. Now, Stuart and I also shot a video, and Stuart, we need to remember to put a link at the top of how last year in this whole area I planted a huge mass of tulips. But I think this year I'm not going to do that, and I might plant just a few more azaleas in there, which will then by next year, I feel fairly certain, fill out enough that this entire area will once again be consumed with azaleas. But this time azaleas that will rebloom and bloom in both spring and fall, so they won't be quite so temperamental. So now Stuart is going to show you some of the footage and some of the damage from all of the drama we experienced last year, and then I will kind of finalize with a little bit of a post-mortem on what the backyard looks like now versus what it looked like after the ice storm.
Okay, you guys, this is not good. It's freezing rain, and I have already heard some limbs breaking.
Yes, they said that they're on the way here, but I don't hear any sirens. Do you? Where is it?
I can't tell.
Okay, let's get out of here.
Well, first of all, I want you guys to know that I'm being very careful. For right now, we still have power. There goes a big limb. We're in the middle of an awful, awful ice storm. It has been raining and icing for I don't know how long. It started yesterday mid-afternoon. You can see some of my maple tree. The branch hasn't broke, but a lot of them are bending over. There is one that's down right now. Some of you will ask, why are the cars still in the driveway? Well, it's because historically in the past, when the branches come down, a lot of them go out into the street rather than over the... And there you have it. There goes my big tree. in the front. At least it didn't fall on the house. And so it goes. Well, I am shooting this short video to just share with you some of the devastation here in Oklahoma City. It is beyond anything you can imagine, and I don't want to pretend in any way that I'm not upset. There are about 300,000 people in Oklahoma City without power right now. And we're just fortunate enough to be safe here. I think pretty much all the trees in my front yard are goners, and most of them on my street. The real tragedy is here in Oklahoma City in these historic neighborhoods. These were the oldest growth trees, and a good number of them have come down and are coming down. It's still raining. You can see just the sheer magnitude of what's gone on. I would show you the back, but our transformer blew last night and set off a fire in the house next door. So we have been instructed not to go into the backyard. We have no power, and I'm going to guess we won't have power for quite a while. There is just so much extensive damage across the city. So hopefully they are able to make it to the hospitals and to the places that really rely on power. It's even a bit deceiving because it looks like some of these trees aren't down, but they are damaged at the top and they are felled. It is just pretty unbelievable. We did not used to get these kind of ice storms. And now in the past 10 years, we have. We had another one in 2007 that I thought was just pretty much it, but it's nothing compared to this one. So, talk about a test of a gardener's resilience. We'll see what can be done. But right now, we are just breathing and trying to remain calm and take care of one another and our neighbors and ourselves. So I'm going to try to keep you posted. Stuart and I will show you more extensive video footage to chronicle this event and hopefully how it transforms itself over time. But right now we're just relying on your prayers and patience and Mother Nature, and a pioneer spirit. So there you have it. We will just carry on. I'll be in touch soon. Thanks everyone who has contacted me with your loving messages. It is very, very much appreciated. Stay safe.
Well, you could see that that was quite traumatic. It was dramatic. It was traumatic. I have said it before and I'm going to say it again. Many of us in Oklahoma still have PTSD and a lingering sadness about what it did to our landscapes. So even though we've got a great pioneer spirit here in Oklahoma, nevertheless, when you've worked on a garden for a long time, you know how that can really affect your gardening chutzpah and your gardening psyche. So that is, I guess, my ending for today is, and as a question of the day, have you ever experienced a gardening event that was so drastic that it really affected your own gardening self-esteem? As a gardener, it affected your self-esteem and how you felt about your gardening skills, even though it had nothing to do with you. So that's my question of the day, and something that I think we're all going to have to wrestle with as climate change affects our gardens and our gardening skills tests our gardening skills and our gardening mettle that much more in the future. So now let me show you kind of what went on in the backyard. Not as extreme as the front, but nevertheless things I am still dealing with. So Stuart, if you will just kind of look up high, you can see that the red buds, they actually lost a number of branches. They have rather filled out, but if you look inside the new suckering of what came off of the old branching, you can see how much damage there was to these old red buds. And even more telling, in the green Japanese maple that was rather protected by my house, it nevertheless had tons of damage. But it's coming out too. I decided not to remove it, partly because it's not real obvious because it's against the facade of the back of my home. So, and I still love the arching of the branches themselves, and I feel confident it will fill out in the future. Plus, my husband now has used it for one side of securing his hammock that he sometimes swings in during football games. And you can see over here, it wasn't as extreme on the east side, but nevertheless, there was some damage on a number of these red buds that we're still recovering from. And we are constantly picking up lots of twigs of more debris that continues to fall from our damaged trees and will, quite frankly, for years. So there is just a little bit of a rehash of what was going on last year. I am so glad that the garden has recovered to the extent it has. I'm so glad that we've got a really beautiful day today, Stuart, in comparison to what it was like last year. Today is Halloween. I anticipate we will have thousands of trick-or-treaters. And I'm trying to remember last year, Stuart, I think we canceled Halloween in our neighborhood in its entirety, not only because of COVID, but because it was just simply too dangerous for those little spooks and ghouls to be out with all of the damage to our massive trees. So there you go. There's a little recap, a little bit of what was happening exactly a year ago today here in Oklahoma City. Well, here is my outfit of the day, compliments of a couple of different places. My earrings, I love big hoop earrings. They are what I consider to be one of my fashion signature touches. And I got these large hoop earrings in silver at a place recently called Eden Boutique, which is in the Paseo Art District here in Oklahoma City. It's a wonderful little boutique, and I shop there because I like to shop local whenever I can. My sweater, I got two of these actually because I really love it, and I believe it comes from World Market. I got one in black and I got one in this gray color. If it's not World Market, it may come from H&M. A lot of my sweaters that I've got in my wardrobe have finally just pilled up and bit the dust, so I replenished some of them this year. My bracelet is really kind of fun. This belonged to my mother-in-law, Susie, and I like to wear her jewelry. It makes me think of her. This ring I have showed before. It's a sterling silver sunflower ring, and I got this at a really wonderful antique store just around the corner from me called Mockingbird Manor, and Stuart and I are going to do a little bit of a tour of that pretty soon when we do a whole segment on shopping local right before the holidays. My breeches are J. Crew skinny jeans. I got these, I believe these are thrifted. I've had them for years, and my boots are a relatively new purchase. I've been able to wear them with a lot more things than I anticipated in my wardrobe, and these are Michael Kors. I got these at Nordstrom Rack. So there you go. There is my outfit du jour.